Alrighty, good morning, guys. Hello, good morning, babies. Good morning, children. Today we're going to be trying something weird and unique. Don't know if this is going to work, bearing in mind I can't really see the camera, so we're just going to have to try to keep things in frame here and kind of show you what we're doing. So, a while back, somebody sent me a message talking about they wanted to see how I drawed or watch me draw or whatever, and see my techniques and or get some advice or some tips on how I do what I do. And sorry if the lighting's not perfect here, but we're going to do the best we can with what we got. But anyways, hopefully this will help some of you guys and show you, how I start laying out things and how I start doing things, and just as a comic book artist. And we'll see how it goes from there. See if you guys like this video or whatever. I may try to do a live stream later on with the same setup of me finishing up a piece I'm working on now or messing around with it. Really won't be able to interact with you because I won't be able to see comments because, of course, the camera's mounted like this. But anywho, all I'm using is a basic standard sketchbook from Walgreens. Nothing fancy. Paper's not that great, etc. Working with limited tools right now, but we're going to do what we can. So, first off, really didn't plan this out, so we're just going to jump right into it. I guess like the layout, as it were, or what have you, on your page, and bearing in mind anything I show you is going to, of course, take practice over time, but hopefully some of these tips will help you out. It'll help you kind of start advancing, moving forward, whatever. And, this is, tips and tricks I've learned over time, things that I've applied to my own art that have helped me, stuff like that. So, basically, we're just going to start with a head, okay? We're just going to go ahead. We ain't got to make it fancy right now. And this is not really a refined, super, complicated piece or picture or whatever we're going to do here. We're just going to do something, go off the cuff. So we got our head, right? Okay. So just any kind of oval shape. If you got to point the chin, that's fine. Who cares? Just do what you got to do, man. Okay. So first thing you want to do is go ahead and try to draw you a line down the middle and then split this in half. Okay. Now, if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. So this right here, what is this? Well, not only does it tell you the orientation of the head, like as you go to the side, etc., you can kind of curve it like this, or to the other side, you can kind of curve it like that. But this basically tells you, the proportions of everything else in your body. Everything mammalian, from a dog to a monkey to whatever animal on earth, organic animal, whatever, and everything else for that matter, if you start to look into it, is kind of proportional to the head length or something else. It all follows the rules of the head, okay? That's basically what gets the whole system going. Human beings are just an organic machine, really, that follow the same laws and rules as everything else in this world. So, everything's going to be based on your head here, okay? So, what you want to do after this point is go ahead and split this in half, okay? So, you already got your head length here, split that in half, then split that in half again. Okay, so this first half mark right here, you want to go ahead and put your eyes down, okay? This right here can be where your nose is, okay? And then half of this can be, where your mouth is, all right? So you got your eyes, nose, and a mouth, okay? So we're not really going to go into adding detail and stuff like that today, I guess. This is just going to be kind of a basis for starting out your journey and how to make things, I guess, quicker for you, hopefully, how to be looser, stuff like that. And over time, bearing in mind that there's a lot of people who use the philosophy that you don't, once you get this, you really don't need all the guiding lines. You can kind of feel it out. And over time, you can kind of get a feel for it. A lot of anime artists, a lot of animators, stuff like that, you got to operate on more or less a feel. And over time, you'll kind of just get like a general sense to keeping everything in proportion. A lot of times, what people have a problem with is when they start to draw, they start to get hung up on shit that really doesn't matter at first. They start to get hung up on, well, I got to do all this and do all that to lay down, detailed things first before they start to get the rest of the picture going. So essentially, what my technique is, and a lot of comic book artists and stuff like that will, I think can attest to this too, is to lay down basically a framework for everything in your picture first. And we'll kind of show that when we go into the body here, and then we'll kind of take it from there, all right? So you already got these established lengths, okay? So what you want to do is you want to go over here to the side. I'm going to go ahead and erase this a little bit, get this out of the way. And you want to go over here to the side, you want to go ahead and measure this, and this is just kind of like training wheels, okay? Over time, you really won't need any of this, but you can always go back to it and you don't have to necessarily draw the line, you can kind of just feel it and kind of get a rough proportion of whatever. And also bearing in mind too, that anatomy and stuff like that, if you follow these rules, you can kind of alter and adapt anatomy as you choose. Like for example, something like Minions, or animation is not typically like like traditional comic book arts and more detailed pieces. It's more of a cartoonish kind of character. It still follows laws of anatomy, but the laws are just altered a bit. As long as you go off of these head lengths and you keep it within these parameters, you can make the arms a little longer, you can make the legs a little longer, you can really distort the figure, and you'll find that it still kind of makes sense, okay? But we'll first start out with kind of just a basic human-esque, human kind of anatomy here. Okay, so you got this length, okay? You want to go ahead and draw down a line, all right? That's going to be your neck, all right? You want to kind of go ahead and get out here, do roughly like a head length of this, and see how I'm kind of, going back and referencing this and kind of sketching whatever. So that's going to be your collarbone, okay? Now you want to go down, do one head length here, one head length here. This right here is going to be your hip, okay? And then you want to go back, reference these. You can go here, create a little line. That's going to be your chest, okay? This will be roughly where the rib cage will go, okay? And from this point right here, you can kind of draw a line out, make like a V kind of shape, okay? And then you could go down here too. You already know this is your hip. I'll go ahead and pop that down. And there you go. You already got yourself kind of a framework for the abdomen. You want to go up here. I'll reference this again. Actually go to here. And I usually like to kind of do it from this point to get my, shoulder. All right. Then you want to go do 2 head lengths roughly. And, generally speaking, your wrist will kind of come in line with your hip here. So, if you got your hip line, you can go ahead and draw that out, kind of extend that to kind of figure out where your arm's going to be at, okay, or where your wrist is going to be at, more or less. And you could also take from this line and kind of rough that out, kind of draw up a line here, and that will show you kind of like your max extension points for some of your arms and stuff like that. So you can kind of roughly draw you a hand, in these positions, and then kind of connect the arm as it goes or what have you. And of course, all this is going to move with that. So, but go ahead and just draw you like a, just kind of like something that resembles an arm. You ain't got to be too sophisticated with it as of yet, okay? So we're going to go down here to the crotch. You want to draw a line that's maybe about half a head length long. And if you split that in half, this could be where your hip bone is. And then, kind of do that right there. And then your legs are generally speaking going to be about 2 head lengths long, okay? So get you a head length there, kind of rough it. Since it's going off the page, we're just going to kind of lay it down like that, whatever. And, notice that I'm not too stringent with it. I ain't getting too crazy with it as of yet. You can always adapt and, alter these. And kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about comic book artists, the layout and stuff like that, framework You always want to leave yourself an escape plan until you know for sure what's going on. So at this point right here, this is the escape plan. What I mean by that is, you can go back and change things. Say like, okay, for example, I don't want this arm being in that position, and I got to change all this. Okay, I did something wrong. That's why you get the framework first, so you can kind of get an idea of what you're working with, what's going on here. Okay, and then you can go back from this point, change it. You can even, throw away the whole piece from this point. From this point right here, you could already say, well, I don't like any of this shit, and I'm gonna just toss it away because, unfortunately, with digital medium, that's why I swear by digital medium if I can, because it's far less waste product. You don't have to worry about things like erasing lines. You can see where I erased here. Basically your lines are, you're gonna leave residue. Your pencils are gonna leave residue. And with a heavier weight paper, better paper, you ain't gotta worry about it, better pencils. You don't have to worry about, the details, digging in, stuff like that. Another quick tip for you is keep everything light, okay? Practice doing, basically light drawing. You want to be able to get as light as you possibly can, and with other grades of pencils, actually, you ain't got to worry about it. Number 2 pencils, standard number 2 pencils, leave a darker line, okay? And before you go through all of this, another quick suggestion too is to draw circles. Just take a scrap piece of paper, draw circles real quick, okay? And that will start to get your hand loosened up so you can kind of sketch and be a little bit more freer and, just be light with it. And it takes time. It definitely takes time and practice. And I suggest actually using, lower grade tools at first, because if you can do stuff with an ink pen with no draft or a pencil that's not high quality, whatever, or the grades of, lighter grades and lighter graphites and all that good stuff, then when you get those tools, the shit will actually seem a lot easier, a lot better and stuff like that, okay? So here we are, and we're making a framework, okay? So, we'll just rough everything out, all right? So from this framework, okay, you already got everything you need to know. You can go down here, do this in a half, get your abdomen going. You can start adding in little things to kind of get you an idea where the anatomy is going to be. Okay, so you got your anatomy down, all right, you got your arms, with your hand, once again, go back, reference this. You want to go ahead and take that measurement there, get your hand going, go ahead and get your hand right there. And another quick tip for doing a hand, a lot of people have problems with hands. Go ahead and get a measurement line like that, split it in half. That's where your thumb's going to be. Okay, that's the joint of your thumb right there. So boom, you can kind of lead off of that right there. All right, and then you could even do another little half, and then you can say, okay, well, that's where my thumb joint's going to be. There you go. And going back once again, don't know if I mentioned this, everything, you start to learn over time that anatomy can be subjective. Things can be subjective, and that's why, I've made posts in the past about nothing's really parallel. Some of the most popular people on earth, for example, movie stars, stuff like that, they did a study and a test I actually seen where it was, proportion of the features as far as the alignment of the eyes, the nose, and stuff like that. The more beautiful people, traditionally beautiful people, the most successful stars that we've seen in movies, stuff like that, have had actually very symmetrical features, as opposed to most people, which, their eyes actually, if you start to actually dissect people's faces or look at their faces on a grid, a lot of people's eyes go, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, stuff like that. And it's not by extremes like all the way up here, but, it's a little bit lighter. Everybody's features are a little bit askewed, you know what I mean? And when you come down to taking selfies and pictures of yourself, usually a lot of times people try to, based on their features, unknowingly start to align their features to more of a symmetrical kind of format. You see what I'm saying? But anyways, I digress. So we go back here. We got the neckline, and already you got pretty much a framework right here. And I don't know if this is going to help you or not, once again, but you already got more or less a framework to kind of build on. Okay, and this is kind of where it goes into the details, etc., and stuff like that. So, and escape plan, once again. Um, but you already have the details right here. Start to go ahead and you can start to fill in things. So okay, you get your eyebrow there, you get the line of the nose, you get a little bit of a lip, okay, and then you could go in here and your ears, which is you got to study it, you got to look at pictures. If you got to lay down pictures of reference, etc., stuff like that from magazines, I highly suggest that. Find you some old magazines, free magazines, magazines people are throwing away, whatever, and you can start to look at the features and start to measure things yourself. And that's why I say to get, like, don't buy things, kind of get scrap magazines or something like that you can find for free, because you could actually take the pictures out, rip them. You can sit there and measure it yourself, hold your fingers up, and kind of, like, the system works. I mean, the system works, and this is an artistic system that has been around since, basically the foundation of modern anatomy. It's something that definitely works. Okay, and so you could go in here, start to lay down your eye detail. Okay, start to lay down a little detail here. I can come up, start to get a hairline going. You could even make it receding if you want to. Who cares, right? We're all different people. Different is beautiful. Okay, so you lay that down there, and nothing's really even locked in stone yet. And as you go through the anatomy, you can adjust. You could add little lines here and there. See, you can kind of pull it down. And usually with the collarbone, I'll leave it as a straight line. But the more you study, the more you look at it. There's curves, there's nuances to the body, there's imperfections. And for the longest time, I struggled with running against those imperfections, stuff like that. And now I kind of run into it. I kind of run into more chaotic lines at times. For example, whenever I'm doing a cape or something, like, or a piece of fabric, I'll just kind of rough it out like that, and then have my line. I like big wavy lines and stuff like that, fabric, moving, etc. So, from this point, like I said, you can go ahead and you can start to tighten it up. So you can start to add detail to it, musculature, get your bicep going. And once again, everything is in a system, but it is subjective too. So, you can make your muscle a little bit thinner, thicker, whatever. And also with this layout, which is, a system that's, like I said, been, I would look into a lot of techniques that anime artists use, animators, because, of course, you got to do hundreds of frames in a certain amount of time, of animation. You have to redraw the same thing over and over and over and over again. So to keep a consistent basis of that character, that whatever you're doing in animation, etc., you have to have a simple framework system to manipulate, because you can't necessarily draw detailed shit every single time. You got to have a framework so you can draw and add in the detail, because usually that's what will, from the animation techniques I've seen, is that's what they'll start. They'll actually start at, so for example, you have somebody running. You'll start here where the person starts to run. You'll start here where the person ends the run, lay out the framework. Then you'll come back and kind of narrow down the subsequent frames, whatever. With comic books, it's a lot more, free, or just a singular piece or whatever. You can kind of adapt that page to page and do whatever you got to do. But, we're going back in here. We're going to lay the musculature down. And so you can kind of do whatever you got to do here. You get your wrist bone, you start to lay it down. And that's what the, drawing ellipses too will help you with the coming thing. Drawing circles once again. But this gets you used to kind of, there's a lot of artists, comic book artists back in the day who did the elliptical techniques, stuff like that. I usually don't go through all that trouble. Sometimes I will. My style is more or less a fusion of a lot of techniques, but if these ellipses, ellipses or whatever you want to call it, circles, stuff like that, help you, then do that. So, we'll just go ahead and try to wrap this up quickly. We'll go ahead and get in here, lay down some abs, and once again, this is just framework and process. Don't stress at this point, dude. And this is kind of also, the more you can give yourself, your brain something to kind of work off of with the framework, the better. You can start to lay in musculature here, bring it down, just ellipses. Doesn't matter if any of this shit's overlapping, stuff like that. You can go in and erase, and you'll get used to over time what you need to see, what you don't need to see. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, whatever works on the framework for you, whatever you need to kind of basically build it, that's how you need to gear yourself toward. But you could go in here and do this later on whenever I get into filling in details and going from here. I'll kind of just go back, add little musculature details, etc., stuff like that. And you get used to erasing lines coming in here, and see you got the basic framework of the anatomy of the arm. Okay, and this is where kind of leaving the escape plan comes in too, is because, okay, say for example I want to put some armor on this guy. Okay, so once again, simple way to do armor is create the framework first. Okay, so rough out some armor. You got this right here. Okay, rough it out, and when you start to do stuff like that, you start to realize, well, shit, I didn't need all of this. Over time in practice, you'll start to realize what you do and you don't need with something. And that's why, once again, with the framework, if I left it at this stage instead of this stage, I wouldn't have to erase all this shit and I wouldn't have all that shit to worry about. So at this stage right here, as long as you get the width of things and, kind of the curvature, so I'll come in here sometimes just rough it out. That's what I generally do now, and save all the, bullshit here and just go ahead and rough it out. And this is already plenty of what I need to know. So, okay, now I got, armor once again. I go in, do a little bit different of an armor piece right here. Okay. Got a little bit different of an armor piece right here. I could split it up, do this, add these. So already it's like, we saved a lot of time, whether it looks that way or not, from here to here. Okay. So right here already, I ain't got to worry about this. I ain't got to worry about that. Go ahead and get rid of all that. Keep your framework. And, another advantage to having paper that kind of retains your lines is even when you erase it, you can still kind of see where you're going. Okay. And once again, another technique you might want to use is all this frameworking process using like a light blue, or a sky blue pencil, like a colored pencil or something like that, to get in all the, rough areas first, and then use something like a number 2 pencil to detail and stuff like that. The contrast is a lot better. Only difference is you can't really erase the color pencil, so it's going to be there and you'll have these blue lines and all that stuff going on. But if you can handle that, and that may very well work for you, it's all about finding out what works for you, man. But basically that's kind of the start of the anatomical process. You already got your crotch line, like I said, your hip. You can just go ahead and bring that up in a V. And it's all about also knowing the contour. Something else that might help you with 3D work or trying to make your, pieces pop more is actually go in, and if this is what helps you, man, this is what helps you. So, your technique is what works for me may not work for you, so on and so forth. My general idea for doing this real quick was to show you how to lay down the framework, proportions, start to get your proportions in check. And then, you can kind of take it from there and figure out what you want to do. But something else that may help you with contouring, stuff like that at first, until you get used to, how things move stuff, is actually drawing lines across stuff and kind of practicing how things bulge out. And that'll help you kind of contour fabric and stuff like that. Say, for example, I want to come in here, add some fabric. I'll just rough it out, and then erase your guidelines. But I already know from that, okay, it's going to contour like this or like that. You see what I'm saying? So the fabric will help you right there. And it's all about, essentially creating an illusion. All right. And a lot of times in comic books, stuff like that with artists, you get to see, basically the end result. You don't get to see how the magic trick is done. You get to see the magic trick, but you don't get to see, all the processes of, where the thing goes and stuff like that. You get to see the end result. You don't get to see all the little nuances that go into building that piece, etc. So I hope this has helped you out some. This is just the start of it, and hopefully everything was in frame and I didn't fuck this up. So I'll talk to you guys later. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.